Find more great shows or join the team at sport-social.co.uk.
Hello, welcome back to a Denis Zakaria special of the Masterclass. I'm your host, Haider Rubbani. I'm joined by Rob as always. Guys, before we start, the usual, give us a follow on at TF Masterclass, give myself a follow on at Haider_Rubbani, and give Rob a follow on at _Rob_B. I'm sure you've done that already, but if there's any new listeners here, please give us a follow so you can keep up to date with all of our great content. Rob, we're going to be talking about the Swiss international, plays for Mönchengladbach, Denis Zakaria, someone who I am actually a fan of. I liked him a couple of years ago before he got injured, and we'll talk about, obviously the difference that injury did make to his career for that 18-month period. He is linked to Manchester United. He is available for 6 million euros. We'll discuss why he is so cheap, because I think people are mistaking the cheap fee for perhaps the quality of player, but it's a lot of quality player that you're going to be getting. What's the latest news regarding Denis Zakaria to Manchester United?
Well, Manchester United are interested in him. We're in silly season, aren't we? It's January for the January transfer window. A failing Manchester United are looking for players, but obviously looking to move players out as well at the same time. United have approached Zakaria's representatives. There's been no contact specifically with his club yet, but everyone knows that he's going to be available for a cut price deal because his contract expires in the summer. So he's in one of those kind of Bosman situations where his club might like to make a little bit of profit instead of just letting him walk on a free in the summer. I think with Zakaria, he's one of those players who's been touted around for a while with a number of clubs. He's a very, very good player. It's just about whether you go and get him now and spend a nominal fee of maybe 5, 6, 7 million pounds, or do you just wait and bring him in the summer on a free? United will have competition. I'm sure they're not the only people to speak to Zakaria's representatives at the moment. But as it stands, it's the kind of sign that I think United would probably make towards the end of the window. So we're doing this now towards the kind of the middle of the window, the start of the window. United are still assessing their options. But we know, of course, that midfield is a big problem for Manchester United.
Massive problem for Manchester United. We've seen that really not being able to play that Rangnick system, not being able to control matches, and not being able to really do the basics of his counter-pressing system. It's a bit of a concern. So Manchester United have to get a player in, Rob. It's very difficult in January because there are a lot of players that Manchester United would like. Tchouaméni's been linked, Neves has been linked, all fantastic players, but you're not going to see Man United go and spend 50, 60 million on a player in January. It doesn't happen very often. Bruno Fernandes really is one of those anomalies where he came in for 47 million and turned Manchester United round. But I want to talk about that contract situation again. Let's touch on it a little bit deeper because he is worth 6 million. Now, people might not be familiar with this, but he can sign a pre-contract, can't he, with a club outside of Germany. So he's got 6 months left on his contract. When you're looking at the possible upside of a player at 6 million, who only a couple of years ago, think about 2 seasons ago, he was very heavily linked to Manchester City. He was hailed by pundits and fans. He was seen as the next Fernandinho, the next player to take over from Fernandinho, had that ACL injury and it sort of knocked his career back a little bit. But having a look at what Manchester United could get with the potential upside, with the low risk, with the fee, they might need to pay a little bit more on wages. They might need to pay a little bit more in terms of a sign-on fee. But it really does make sense, doesn't it, for United to go and get a player like Zakaria in now or on a pre-contract at the end of the season? I think now is important, though.
Yeah, it's all about what your wants and needs are. And Manchester United are in a bit of a pickle, aren't they? So, there's still no doubt that your primary targets will probably be available next summer. And that's something that you'll be planning for. So you obviously don't want to spend too much money. But you're also in a situation at the moment where the current squad can't do what the current manager wants them to do. So that's a problem, isn't it? So when you look at Ralph Rangnick, whether he's going to be at the football club long-term as the coach or whether he's going to just carry on with this consultancy role over 2.5 years, which is obviously what's been mooted, you kind of got to look at it as this Red Bull project refired in England. Yeah, this is a new thing at our football club at Manchester United. And it starts here, doesn't it, in this transfer window? It doesn't start next year. So Rangnick will have a big say in that when he's talking to the board. But there's the other side of the coin, which is about value. So there's no problem for Manchester United at 6 or 7 million. The risk is small. And of course, we know that the Glazers want to kind of revert back to their old policy of buying low and selling high. What have they done over time? They've bought high. It's been a disaster, and they've had to sell low or at nothing. So that's something that I think the Glazers are very aware of. And I think Rangnick's been brought in to kind of bring that balance, find players that have good transfer values for Manchester United, but then have big upsides on the pitch. So Zakaria, as you said, we'll talk about him, his career, not had great form in recent times, but as you said, big reputation, kind of courted by many clubs over a long period of time, and a kind of player, I think, that suits what Manchester United need. We're always told by fans and everyone and pundits that United need a defensive midfielder. I've always said you need a midfielder that can do lots of things in midfield, not just a defensive midfield. Good thing about Zakaria is he ticks those boxes.
Absolutely. Let's move on. I mean, we're going to have a discussion about, sort of defensive midfielder, because I think we do disagree on that. But Zakaria, I agree with you in the fact that he brings a little bit of everything. And when you have a look here, Rob, I mean, let's sort of break him down. He is 25 years old. He can play defensive midfielder. But really, I think where he excels is he's more of a box-to-box. In terms of carrying the ball, I like to look at him as an all-round midfielder. Now, back before his injury, we saw him play more as a defensive midfielder, had a terrible ACL injury. Look, I've had an ACL injury before, Rob, as well. I still can't do the things that I used to. I obviously was never a professional footballer. But, these are injuries that does take a little bit of time to get back up and running, for your body to trust, the new tendons in your leg, etc. But he's played more box-to-box this season. If you have a look at some of the statistics from this season, he's had 14 appearances, 14 starts. He's got 2 goals and 1 assist. Now, the key ones really here, we're looking at some of the statistics, tackles 1.6 per 90. So he's not a massive tackler. And when you do sort of compare that as well to Fred, I mean, Fred's 2.96 and McTominay is around 2.06. So he isn't as, engaging or as aggressive as those two. But, where he kind of does surpass them really is in the pass success rate, the dribble success rate. I mean, look, he's in the 70% for dribbles and then 90% for pass. And he's someone that will get you up the pitch. Now, teams press Manchester United, and Manchester United's midfielders aren't press resistant at the moment. What Zakaria could give you is someone who will be able to carry the ball, get United out of danger, and get them up the pitch and get them into dangerous areas.
That's exactly what he will give you. That's what he's good at. So you just kind of said there, you talked about box-to-box midfielder and being an all-round midfielder. I think those two things kind of stick together. Box-to-box midfielders are expected to be able to do everything in the midfield function well. That's why you're a box-to-box. When you have a defensive midfielder, you're talking about players that can screen, that can plug gaps, that can tackle, and really kind of just look after the back four, kind of get in front, be able to be that kind of aggression area of the pitch where you want players to kind of go and meet players. Well, when you look at Rangnick's system and you look at counter pressing, the idea is that you defend much higher up the pitch. You push up, you get the press on, you set traps, you do all those things that we've talked about now for weeks about what Rangnick wants to do. Zakaria gives you that. He gives you that in droves. When you look at the stats in, which you just touched on them, the one that really gets me there is 90% pass success rate. Because that's what I'm looking for. I want someone who can be in front of the back four, who can pick the ball up in the more defensive areas and get you going without giving the ball away. What have we all been annoyed about watching Manchester United over the last 6-7 games over the Rangnick period? They can't keep the ball. So this is kind of what you need to solve. You need to bring in a player that can keep the ball. So if 90% means that 9 out of 10 times the pass goes to the player it's supposed to go to, that's good. That starts with that. Even long ball success rate there, 70%. That's kind of 7 out of 10. This is easy statistics here as I'm going through. Dribbles is good. Tackles, I'm not really interested in players tackling. Now, I know that fans love it. They love an Aaron Wan-Bissaka tackle, but I would rather Aaron Wan-Bissaka could pass the ball or cross the ball. Those things are more important in the modern game in that position. In central midfield, they're also more important. So Fred and McTominay have got motors. They can play the double pivot. They can give you the energy, the dog's energy, as I've talked about before. Zakaria also has got energy, but he's going to be a player that intercepts the ball a lot more and gets you going on the front foot. He's also a classical counter-pressing, counter-attacking type of midfielder. He can get the ball going in terms of running with it and passing it out. That's really what Man United lack. Matic can't do it. McTominay doesn't really have the accuracy to do it, and Fred's just all over the shop. So when you look at those three, Zakaria would be coming in and strengthening that as a quartet.
The key here, Rob, the percentile that I'm looking at with Zakaria is, the 89th percentile he is in Europe with dribbles completed from midfield. And if you look at some players he's similar to, and this is going to annoy some fans, Scott McTominay is one of the players he's similar to. But I'm going to let you bring up one player that he's similar to as well. And who's that player? Let the listeners sort of, get excited, but also they might also think, no, he's not. But which player is it?
This is not hyping him up. So he's got qualities of Declan Rice. So in terms of what Declan Rice does well and what he doesn't do well, Declan Rice has become very, very good and efficient at getting the ball and moving with it, either by passing it out or running with it. He's a strong runner with the ball and going a straight line with accuracy. So this is the thing. We don't want this kind of wild type of midfielder that can just kind of run with it and then lose it. You need to be able to do something with it. So Zakaria has those elements to his game. He might not be as tough as Declan Rice, but he can certainly do all the front-footed stuff that Declan Rice does. So he can play the defensive midfielder role as a number 6, like Declan Rice can do it. But I'm not saying for 1 second that Zakaria is as good as Declan Rice. Now, if you're Manchester United and you're a bit worried about bidding for Declan Rice either in this window or next window for 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 million, it's kind of endless for an England international, isn't it? Going and get Zakaria for 6, 7, or 8 million makes much more sense, because you can drop him into what you've already got. He will still give you those functions. And really at 24, 25, you can still develop this player. He can get better in there. And let's put it this way. As I said, the Glazers like to develop talent and have sell-on value. If he does well for 2 or 3 years, suddenly you're going to have an asset worth 50, 60, 70 million that you paid for 6 million. So all of those things do add up. And I think on the pitch, he would give Ralph Rangnick exactly the type of midfielder that he needs.
Let's talk about what he brings to United. So we've obviously touched on some of those attributes. What I do want to say is that he does fit the mold of Ralph Rangnick, what he wants from midfielder. We've seen that he wants a tall midfielder, doesn't he? So we've been linked with Haider. We've been linked with Declan Rice. He wants a player with some physical presence in that midfield. Now, let's talk about sort of maybe what the fan base really, really want, because he's not going to be that controller in midfield. And we talk about control, and this is what I'm seeing, I think, at the moment. Maybe I guess the frustration from the fan base is like, well, he's not going to be the one that improves Man United on the ball. Well, actually, he's a good passer, but he's not going to control it, say, like a Carrick, or maybe even someone like Neves who would come in. He's not going to control the tempo of the game. But what he will give Manchester United, and we can see here, he's played this season. This is from Who Scored. This is a player positioning map. He's played as a defensive midfielder, a central defender as well, which is interesting because he can play in the back 3. And let's say Bailly is off, which it does look like he could be, to Milan, then he could be an option in that heart of defense. And you can see where he's really excelled, really as a central midfielder. Now, looking at the attributes, we've talked about dribbling, passing, and blocking. What may concern United fans is you look at the weaknesses, which is tackling and concentration. Now, say he does go and play in a number 6 role in a 4-3-3, because he could probably allow United to do that. Is there concerns that he is, from United fans, that he isn't the player that will essentially elevate United maybe to that next level in that position?
There's concerns from United fans. There's no concerns from me, because I think there's this kind of overlap of where football fans, again, kind of crave one thing, but actually need another. The football club needs certain things. So Denis Zakaria is a modern central midfielder who can do the defensive function and go on the front foot. That's what the modern game dictates. So when you look at, I don't know, again, let's look at someone like Rodri at Man City, can do the defensive function, but essentially he's not really a defensive midfielder. He can pass the ball out, he can carry it, he can even get the odd goal or two. He's a big unit. He can kind of do certain things. You talked about Fernandinho is there as well. Kind of that similar outlook where Fernandinho was initially more of a box-to-box entity, became more of a defensive function as he got older. You look at Liverpool, you've got players like Fabinho, Thiago Alcantara. It's all about kind of passing the ball out and intercepting the ball. They're not big tacklers, are they? They don't go in there and smash people. So what do Man United fans want? They want Roy Keane. It's the same rubbish we hear year after year after year. Well, we're 10 years, 15 years, 20 years into the future now. We're not going to find Brian Robson. Brian Robson's gone, my hero. So you say bye-bye to that. You need a modern player in there. Zakaria doesn't fix everything that's wrong at Man United, but he's certainly a player that you could pair up with someone else that could help fix it. So Zakaria and Rice, I like that. Zakaria and Neves, I like that too. Zakaria and maybe someone like Basuma. There's lots of players that you can pair up together that don't cost the earth. So again, Man United fans want, if we sat here today going, oh, Zakaria's under contract, Man United want him, he's going to cost 60 million quid. United fans will be happier. They're like, oh yeah, 60 million. I understand what that price tag means. All you're getting here is a bargain, but also a bargain that has a lot of upside and not a lot of downside. So again, at 6 million, if he's not even in your starting 11 for whatever reason, doesn't play well, he's a pretty good substitute. It's good to be in your squad. He's probably a lot more use for you than Donny van der Beek. He's a lot more use for you than someone like Jesse Lingard. He's a player that kind of fits your needs. And that's really what Man United need to do in this window and the next.
There's a problem, Rob, that, United fans, they want the shiniest and most expensive player. They want that new player. Donny van der Beek, not long ago, he was a player as well that, I was delighted when we signed him. And look how that's turned out. He's just not really cut out for the league. Maybe hasn't been given the opportunities that he deserves. But, this is the thing. It's always a shiny new toy. Look at Erik ten Hag, the shiny new toy manager. Pochettino's apparently the worst manager, a bottler and all this. And then you see it. It's mind-blowing. And I've noticed it, with Pochettino. Pochettino's a really good manager. And I do want to talk about the next manager because it is going to be most likely Erik ten Hag or Pochettino. Ten Hag's fantastic as well. But it's like Ten Hag is flavour of the month. 2-3 years ago, Zakaria, a lot of United fans would have wanted him, but he's not flavour of the month. Flavour of the month is Tchouaméni at the moment. Do you understand? So it always goes this way, doesn't it? Whoever's the flavour of the month, that's who the fans want. And there's no guarantee that it'll work. Donny van de Beek, for me, I thought would come in and he was flavour of the month, wasn't he? He's a fantastic player for Ajax. And he's come in and he's flopped. So sometimes the signing that you need isn't the big name signing, but it's the signing that's going to be the best for the team. It's going to fit a role. It's the functionality of that signing. But I do want to talk about some of the style of play here. As you can see on the screen, we've discussed that he likes to dribble, counter-attack threat, likes to play short passes, likes to shoot from distance. He's an all-action midfielder. I'd say he's an all-round midfielder. He's a strong midfielder. Let's say Pochettino came in. There are suggestions, that he would like a player like that. There are suggestions that he could be similar with the attributes he's got to someone like Moussa Dembele, and that's what you need, don't you, from Manchester United? You need a manager to come in and to develop players into roles within the system and the team.
Yeah, I think there's kind of no doubt at the moment that this job that obviously Ralph Rangnick's been given to do it in 6 months isn't really, the job. It isn't. This is a much longer build, whoever the manager is of that. So the manager will get a choice in that. But I think this is also now about Man United behind the scenes with the director of football, with John Murtough, and obviously about the scouting network that they already have. So Zakaria has been on that scouting network for ages. This is not a new thing. Fans might have only just heard about him even today, or kind of with the recent rumours, especially with his contract running down. The January transfer window's open, so obviously everyone's talking about players that are available. But I think what's more interesting is about how Man United see their long-term build. So if you bring in someone like Ten Hag or Pochettino, I think they'd like a Zakaria. If Ralph Rangnick gets the job full-time for whatever scenarios we think that might happen, I think he'd like Zakaria. And I think this is how Man United will go out and buy and purchase. They're not going to guess. You're not going to buy a player now that you're not really sure about if you need him or not. There's no speculation here in terms of the kind of talent you need. You're going to have to bring in a kind of talent that fits all the molds, all the things you need to do. So I think that he would work well under any of those prospective managers. You said they're kind of, Pochettino and Ten Hag are the favourites. I would say at the moment we don't know who the favourite is, being completely honest, because we do not know what's going to happen to Man United in the next 6 months. We just do not know. Anything could happen. If Rangnick has a really good run, I think Rangnick gets the job. I think it's as simple as that. I think there's also going to be managers out there who might get sacked between now and the end of the season. And Man United might look at them and go, you're our guy. You're the one we would like. So all of those things are on the table at the moment. And I think really with Ten Hag or with Pochettino, we know what styles they like to play or what they like to do when they're building football clubs. But again, it's got to fit with Manchester United's vision from the football board.
That word vision, Rob. I just don't really have much faith in the board to make the right decisions. I mean,
you shouldn't have any faith. They've not proved it. So
yeah, they've not proven it at all. The midfield's been woefully neglected, wrong profiles, and going from one manager's, with possession base with Louis van Gaal to Jose Mourinho, low block, counter-attacking football to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, who wanted to play a bit more, counter-attacking football, but he wanted the press as well. Didn't see it, mismatch of players, and now you're seeing, obviously, that's the key here. And that's why the concern is with Rangnick, obviously, as the interim, is that, the players that he brings in, will he be given the money to bring players in January? It doesn't seem like it. He might be able to bring 1 or 2 players in. And the second question, obviously, is whoever comes in after, there has to be a sort of a gelling of squads, essentially. So the manager comes in after, and it can't be a squad with so many different profiles, or like you said, new players coming in, and he decides on his first day, I don't want this player because he doesn't fit the way I want to play. So it is difficult. But let's sort of conclude now. And what are your final thoughts on Zakaria, and how would you convince those that aren't convinced that he would be a smart and shrewd signing for Manchester United?
Well, if you were talking about Zakaria and his true value of around kind of 40, 50, 60 million, around that mark, then I would say that there is a lot of risk there. I would say that I'm not particularly sure if he's the right player at that value. If you're going to go and get someone like Ruben Neves, and Ruben Neves might well leave Wolverhampton Wanderers in the next few weeks, we just do not know. He's going to come at a premium, isn't he? Because he's a Premier League player. He's already proven in that arena. And you know what you're getting. I think with Zakaria at 6 million, just go and get him. Go and get him. You need someone in there to at least compete with the other midfielders. I think it's been pretty obvious from what we've seen under Ralph Rangnick that he wants to do one thing, but the squad can't do it. So what can you do? You've got to tweak the squad. And I'm still in the camp that I want Rangnick to do this job long term. I know kind of we have differing opinions on that. And, people looking at Poch, and I'm a big Poch fan from before, and I wanted him at the football club, obviously, going back over time. Ten Hag's got a big reputation. I'm not quite sure if that reputation's been earned because he's done it at Ajax, and Ajax is a kind of little bubble in itself in the Netherlands. It's about trying to find now a manager, I think, that's got the experience of rebuilding. Zakaria would be a good piece to that. So when I look at Fred and I look at McTominay, I don't think those 2 players are going anytime soon. If you lose Matic in the summer, then Zakaria now would be a good player to bring in, just to put someone in that box to be able to do stuff. I still want a player who is a box-to-box, and I'll keep using that word because that is what the modern game is about. It's about having an engine. It's about having quality on the ball. It's about being able to score if you're at the other end as well. But it's also about being able to protect without being too heavy on the back foot. Man United midfielders too heavy on the back foot. When they do defensive work, it's like, well, I don't do anything else. I just do a bit defending, and that becomes a problem. So Zakaria would be an excellent signing. I think Manchester United should go and get him tomorrow. I'd be very, very happy with it. I don't think Zakaria is the answer to everything that's wrong. One player we haven't mentioned yet is Paul Pogba. He's not a replacement at all for Paul Pogba, not in the same sphere as kinds of players types, but Zakaria might be better suited to what Man United need than what Paul Pogba is. We know Paul Pogba has defensive frailties. Zakaria doesn't have them. But Zakaria definitely can counter-press. He can pass the ball. He can dribble the ball. And he's an intelligent player. He'll be able to help you get the ball to those forwards who need that service from midfield.
My final word, Rob, on this is that, like you did mention, I want to touch on that as well, that he isn't the solution, and this is what fans need to understand. Not one player coming in is going to be the solution. Man United essentially, I think, need 3 players in that squad, in that midfield, that do a little bit of everything. But I think for me, they need someone that can sit and control the tempo of the game. They need someone who can get up and down the pitch, like Zakaria, who's going to be able to dribble the ball. And they also need someone who can do just a little bit of everything. They need quality. If Matic is going to go, Van der Beek's going to go, Pogba, we don't know what's going to happen. Zakaria is a great start at 6 million. So anyway, guys, as always, make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, give us a follow on at TF Masterclass, give myself a follow on at Haider_Rubbani. Give Rob a follow at _Rob_B. Turn those notifications on as well. You don't want to miss any of the transfer content. It will be always tactical transfer content. Rob, thanks for joining me, and we'll see you all next time.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.